Hey everyone, this is Larry. Welcome back to Today I Feel Like. I am back in the building. I'm with Kobe Cove today, with indie filmmaker, photographer extraordinaire, and multimedia instructor. Kobe, tell us what's good, man.
Everything is good, man. Life is beautiful. I stay masked up. I definitely do that.
You know?
So life is beautiful, man. I'm ready to rock and roll to get into this conversation.
Yeah, so I know a lot of you that show up, I generally do a lot. Well, I do a lot of general tech oftentimes where I talk about all kinds of stuff. But as some of you may know, that my first love is photography and filmmaking also. And me and Jacobi go back a long ways. I mean, we go back decades, and we talk pretty much almost every day. We talk about various stuff, but we often talk about camera gear. And we decided we were going to have this sort of conversation because both of us right now are in the process of trying to figure out what new camera to buy. We're both looking at buying a new camera. And interestingly enough, when we bought new cameras before, I think it was maybe a year or so ago, we were both actually looking at buying new cameras at the same time. And we sort of went through this same process together last time. So I thought, we have this conversation all the time. Let's just go ahead and take it online and talk it out, and and see what the people think about it. Because sometimes there's people out there that are going through the same internal conversations. They're having the same internal conversations and trying to figure out what it is that they should get. So first of all, we are both Sony shooters, but
yes,
our needs are a little bit different. So let me ask you, what are some of your needs for filmmaking and photography?
Well, for filmmaking, I'm shooting narrative work, some doc work, and I'm hoping to get into more commercial work. And so that's my main focus, and every now and then I may do some stuff where some newsy type stuff, but most of the time it's narratives, commercial, or doc work. And photography is sports. I
All
do some
sports.
family, but sports is what I rock out. Yeah, I love
Sports is where
sports, all of them.
So when you're looking for as a photographer shooting sports, what are some of the things you're most looking for in a camera?
Speed.
Okay.
Speed, how many frames in a second? Autofocus, an
Okay.
outstanding autofocus, and a lot of times resolution. And
Okay.
Those are the three main things that I'm looking for.
See, now I say when I was shooting sports a lot, and for a number of years, that's what I did. I shot sports just full time. And one of the things that was important to me, obviously, I mean, frame rates were always very important. Autofocusing was important, but autofocusing for me, even though it was very important, it was probably secondary, maybe even third, because when I came up shooting sports, I actually started shooting a lot of sports manually. I did a lot of manual focusing, and so I came up sort of learning how to track manually. I learned where you sort of learn to get into the game, so you know where people are going. You watch and know where how certain teams play. And for some sports, you can actually know where the ball is going, so you can just simply focus over on that. You can just sort of zone focus. But autofocus now has gotten so good that you can actually depend on it, in a professional setting. But one of the things that I found that, when I came out here to the East Coast, one of the things that I found that was more important to me probably than autofocusing was low light performance, because I found that I was shooting so much. I was shooting a lot of prep sports, and I was shooting so much and at these like high school stadiums and in basketball arenas, gymnasiums that had really bad lighting. And so I mean, as much as you want to have the best autofocusing system, I found that I really wanted really good low light, because I just you don't want your photos to be grainy and nasty, and so.
Some
But
people call that character.
say it again.
Some people call that character.
The character. Some of them, yeah, some of them definitely call that character. So now, on the filmmaking side, what are you looking for on with your cameras when it comes to filmmaking? And for those of you out there, Jacobi has made a number of short films, documentaries, narrative films. He's working on a narrative film right now. He's done a number of commercials and various things, but he and I have had this conversation going back and forth, because I shoot most of my stuff with mirrorless cameras, and Jacobi has recently went and bought a cinema camera, and so. And that's partly because his needs are a bit different from mine. But I would like you to talk about maybe what led you to buy a cinema camera, and are you planning on staying with a cinema camera, or are you looking elsewhere?
Well, for me, a cinema camera, the ergonomics, the ease of use, and so I'm gonna give you. Me and Larry have these conversations, and it was a time when I was going through some stuff, and I was like, "Yo, Larry, I want to get this." He was like, "What have you shot lately? What have you shot?" It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just shoot. So, and to say that, and what that told me is I need to eliminate friction between me wanting to shoot and getting out and shooting. So
Right.
the cinema camera eliminated a lot of friction. I had to rig up this daggone A7 III every day. I had to pack it and stack it with a whole bunch of equipment, and it just started to become a headache. And so I decided to have one system for video and one for photography, where I could just lift it and go. And so I bought an FS5 because it matched my A7 III. No other reason. It was a good camera, but it made it easier for lenses. And so those ergonomics allowed me and it was so small, just to pick the camera up and go shoot without having to worry about, do I got to put a cage on it? Now I got to put the big battery on it. Now I got to put the handle on it. I just could go out and have everything ready to roll.
Right. And and that's one of those things, I think, that's tricky when you're shooting with a mirrorless camera or a DSLR of some sort, is that people buy these because they are very good with both photography and with videography, and people, I think, have a tendency to want their camera to do it all. And really, that's only because these cameras have been so good doing both. But when you think about it, in the past, no one expected their cameras to do everything. I mean, if you think about back in the day, even people that would go on vacation or something, people would have a separate video camera, and then they would have a separate stills camera. And it's been that way from the consumer level all the way through the professional levels. And I think this whole idea of having a hybrid system is a very new thing. And I think that as an amateur or a prosumer, I think the hybrid camera works really well. But I think as a professional, I think if you're shooting every day, I think people are finding themselves more and more in the same shoes that you're in, where you want a dedicated camera, because you don't want to have to rig everything up and for those of you who, and let's see if I can pull up a photo of let's see here. This is like an A7 III. Let me see if I can pull this photo up right here, so that you can get an idea of what this looks like. Let's see here. Let me see if I can. Nope, I don't want the YouTube video. Let me just see if I can just pull this up here.
Okay. Well, while you're grabbing that, also, I think the size was a benefit too, instead of having a big rig.
Right. So if you can see that there, that is what a A7S III, and that's what you're shooting with. But that's what an A7S III can look like, and often looks like when it's fully rigged up. You're looking at an A7 III with a small rig cage, V-mount batteries, and a monitor all hooked up. So, and that right there is not much different than you know, than a regular cinema camera, size-wise, probably weight-wise as well, and you might be losing some convenience of, obviously, of not having built-in NDs and XLRs and all that good stuff there. So, but so anyway, so this is what you had for a while. You were rigging your camera up like this. So now you've gone over to the cinema side, and what is that giving you?
So what that's giving me, especially the Sony, it has a variable ND, which is like sometimes if I have to adjust exposure quickly, I can just use the variable ND instead of going in adjusting the ISO or the f-stop. It's also giving me XLRs. But now I'm starting to question how important XLRs are with the quality of microphones that go on the quarter inch now, because people have used the DSLRs for so long that they have made quality equipment that can get you some pro audio with the quarter inch. So I'm starting to question, is that old school, or will that, depends on what I'm shooting, is that really important? Because
Right.
it's definitely not important if I'm just shooting YouTube content or things of that nature. And so by using, and it has so many customizable buttons that are on the outside of the camera. So normally with the A7S III or the A7S, you got to fiddle around with the menu system. But I have so many customizable buttons everywhere that I can hit a lot of features by hitting a button and digging into the camera.
And let's just show them what the A7S III the FS5 looks like, what you're shooting with now. So this is a look at the an FS5. So, and let me get that off there. So that is an FS5 right there. And you can see that even though it is bigger, the camera itself is bigger than a mirrorless camera. Once you have like a mirrorless camera all rigged up, it's not that much of a difference size-wise. I mean, there's still this camera, the FS5 is still a bit bigger, but it's not that much bigger once everything is totally rigged out. And so, have you found it to be worth it, or do you still at times just think I would rather just shoot with a mirrorless camera?
Yes, it's so the form factor, sometimes I still want something smaller, and like to get a lot of things that I want to get, it just is better. Like the codecs are a lot better on a mirrorless camera. Somebody said I'm looking blurry. I can't see it in my screen. Maybe it's my glasses. I don't know.
No, I think you're pixelated a bit. I think maybe your connection's a little bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
like, I could do a lot of stuff in camera without an external monitor. Like, I'm getting a better getting 10-bit instead of 8-bit, those kind of things. But I still would like it small, and I would prefer to have internal recording, which I mostly do. And we'll talk about that later, because now I can shoot more stuff with a really solid internal codec. And with some of the other things, they just have a lot more features that you can make small adjustments to. But the actual sensor is the same as the A7 III. The FS5 and A7 III have the
so the FS5 is a full frame sensor as well, correct?
The FS5 is a full frame sensor, but it shoots in Super 35.
It shoots in Super 35. So for those of you that don't know, the Sony, except for the A7S III, the Sony A7 III, the Sony A7R III, the Sony A7C, all those, all that line. I think the Sony A7R4 as well. They all shoot with a 6K sensor, but they don't let you output in 6K. It's a 6K sensor that they downsample to 4K so that you get really sharp images. So instead of shooting at a native 4K sensor, they give you a higher res sensor that they then down res, and that way you're getting just that super extra crispy image. So, and I'm assuming that's what they're doing, except they're probably, if it's the same sensor as the FS3, excuse me, the A7 III, I'm assuming they're down resing from 6K down to a 4K APS-C sensor.
Yeah, and they're probably doing it because that standard lenses. A lot of those cinema cameras are Super 35.
Right.
Until recently.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting too, the way that those lenses are moving forward, because for a long time, you're right, that most of the cinema lenses, all the old like Hawk, Cook, Panavision, all those things have all been Super 35, even though they consider it full frame. Full frame in the film world, you know, if you're shooting still photography, full frame is full frame. But if you're shooting full frame in the video or filmmaking world, full frame is not truly full frame. It is Super 35, and the reason for that is because the strip on there was for you have part of the film strip for the image and part of the film strip on there for audio, and so you end up with a smaller image than if you were shooting a still picture, because if you're shooting a still picture, it's just a single image frame. There's no audio associated with it. So yeah. All right, so let's talk about some of the cameras that you and I have been looking at. So, because I've been looking at a few, you've been looking at a few. Tell me about the ones you're looking at first.
So, I'm looking at the FX6,
okay,
or the red Komodo, and I was considering the C70, but it's really, really not heavy on my list. So those are the three that I'm looking at. And I even considered the A7S III because it has some features that the FX6 doesn't have.
FS6. All right, I'm gonna pull that up. I'm gonna go over to. For any of you who are curious about any of these cameras, you can usually go over to B&H Photo and check out all of these cameras that are up there. So we'll check out the FX6. And here's the thing, the FS6, for when it came out, a lot of people called this the perfect cinema camera with a very serious caveat.
Depends on who you shoot, what you shoot, and how you shoot.
Right. And so let me see if I can pull this one up here.
Okay.
And this one here, ignore the price somewhat on here, because we're talking about this camera here is the one with the lens on it. If you get the body alone, it's about $1,000 cheaper. So, but this here is the Sony FX6 digital cinema camera kit, and it comes with a 24 to this kit comes with a 24 to 105. So, tell us a little bit about this camera and why you like it.
Well, I love it. Full frame, so you're going to get a very shallow depth of field. I have a lot of full frame lenses that are prime lenses. Where you don't get stuck on a DSLR is that you can shoot and move that monitor anywhere.
Oh, really?
So you can take it and move it anywhere, just like on my FS5. So I can move it to the back of the camera, front of the camera, do a lot of stuff with it. It has a variable ND. It also is a low light beast. It has a new feature that it has. They call it, I think it's Cine L. It's a new kind of codec that gives you kind of clean colors right out of the camera, so you don't need to edit. So if you're doing TV stuff or you need a quick turnaround,
right,
you put it on that setting. And the A7S III doesn't have that, and you get clean and very good colors, almost like they call it the Venice look, right out of the camera. And Sony Venice is their top of the line cinema camera,
right?
And so it really, and up front for what it does, it does it well, and it has everything that you need. Now, we'll talk about the issues with it later, but
No, let's talk
it's a
about it
great,
now.
great thing. Okay, so one of the things is to get the raw out of it, you need an external monitor. So it's a bigger monitor, adds weight to the rig. The other part is the audio. I don't like to shoot with the handle on.
Okay.
So if you had that handle on, so if you shoot with that handle on, you lose any audio. You don't have any, not even a 1/4 inch.
And all
On
you
the
have
side
is
end.
a small pinhole mic that's built into the camera, and that's all you're going to get is that just really bad scratch audio that you can use.
Yeah.
And if you're, I mean, that's fine for some people if you are. I imagine if you have a sound man, or if you're recording your own sound separately, then that's fine because you can just sync it later. That's assuming that you don't have any issues with the audio coming in.
And so that's my biggest issue with the FX6 and having to get raw externally. You know,
Yeah.
because it adds weight, it adds a point of failure. You know, it's a lot.
Yeah, that for me is a real issue, the audio thing, because I don't think most people, well, no, I think most people do understand that audio is just vital. It is, and there is a saying that filmmakers talk about and content creators particularly talk about, where they say that people will watch a bad video, but they will not listen to poor sound. That's just, they won't do it. So if people can't hear you or they can't understand you, they just won't listen. They'll cut your video off. But if you go in there and you have an interesting story to tell, or you're doing a tutorial of some sort, and your audio's fine, but your picture's subpar, they'll hang in there with you. They'll hang in there with you because you can still get that story told. But if your picture is bad and your audio's bad, or your audio's bad but your picture's fine, they'll click out for bad audio. So. And the thing that surprised me with that camera that they didn't put some sort of audio input on there is because it's so small, it's so compact for what it is. It really is in a lot of ways the perfect camera to fly fly on a gimbal, and except you lose your audio. And to me it just seems like they should have just allowed. Even if it was a 3.5 millimeter jack, you know, something.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the cost? How is the cost relative to some of the other cameras that you're looking at?
They're all around the same. All of the cinema line prosumer models, out for lack of a better category, are all around 6,000. The cheapest one is the C70. But once you add a little, I can't even get it out, to make it a full frame camera, you know, what do they call the speed booster? Once you add a speed booster, now we're at 6,100.
Okay.
You know, and so they're all around $6,000. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so it's really relative now about the price. It's just what do I value? Because it's not going to be much cheaper either way you go.
All right, let's talk about, let's go ahead. Let me pull up the Canon C70 here.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that camera a little bit, because this is a camera that when we were talking and you were asking what camera should you get, and we were talking through it, this is a camera that I said I thought would be a good one, a good choice for you, because I thought it had, between all of those that we looked at, I felt like this is one that had the probably the best balance of features and cost, because you are getting, you know, if you look here, you are getting you're getting your inputs for audio, even though it is a mini XLR instead of a full-size XLR. You know, you get Indy filters on here. You get most of your pro cinema camera features in a very compact body that looks, I mean, this body looks like a DSLR on steroids, and except it is a very powerful cinema camera. So, but you didn't. But you've never been very hot on this camera to begin with. So tell me of the three. I think this is the one that you probably like the least. So let's talk about why this one is not working for you.
So they're all comparable, and it's about what value you place on it. So Canon doesn't have a RAW. They have C-Log, but they don't have a RAW format. And that was a downside. And if I compare it to the Sony, it has an ND filter, but it's not that variable ND that slightly changes where I can get exposure. It's either to stop or not. And then I had to switch systems. And if I was going to switch systems, it would have to really grab me for me to switch my whole system, to invest in a whole new set of lenses, sell those lenses off, and start from scratch. So the appeal to it was that it did have the audio to it. I love the form factor because that looked like it was perfect to shoot running gun. And it had many XLRs. You might need an adapter, but that's a very small thing. To make something work. But it was Canon. It didn't have the RAW, and I was gonna have to spend more money on RF glasses, or even if I got EF glasses, I had to buy an adapter, which raises the price still.
That is true. So that is something important to consider, is the fact if you have to switch systems, if you are shooting right now with Sony mirrorless cameras and you go to the Sony cinema camera line, you can take all of your lenses with you. And if you actually go, and I mean, with Canon, if you have Canon glass, you can actually take that Canon glass over to the Sony side as well too, but you can't go in reverse. You can't go so you can't take Sony glass over to Canon. Now they might end up making some adapters, because for the longest time you couldn't take those over there because you were talking about taking a mirrorless camera over to a DSLR body, and that is something you couldn't do before because of the flange distance and all that. But now, since Canon actually has a mirrorless camera, I wonder if there's going to be any EF to RF lens adapters coming out.
Oh, I would love to see that.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I would love that.
So
because that's my.
I'm going to give a shout out to a few people out here in the comments section. We have B Avery from Just My Opinion Reviews. He does movie reviews. If you guys have not checked out his channel, check him out. He is one of the dopest film and TV reviewers out there, talking about good stuff. He does reaction videos, full reviews, all that good stuff. And he gets some good screeners and stuff early. So sometimes you can get a good idea of what a movie is going to be like before everybody else gets to watch it. He can tell you a little bit about it, and if it's even worth your time. So we have Big Ben from across the pond. That is Big VIP Tech over there in Australia. Big ups to you. We have Tim Windsor in the house. Tim is I think he is actually near you. I think he's actually over there near Philly, Delaware, somewhere out that way. So yeah, big ups to Tim. We have Moochie in the house, Moochella in the house doing her thing. So yeah. All right. So here's one thing that I with the Canon that I really like, and that is the sensor is a proper cinema size sensor. There's no cropping into it. There's no down resing, I guess, or oversampling. It's a pure cinema sensor. And if you look at it, and let me see if I can pull it up, you'll see. You can see. Let's see if I can get this. Let me see if I can add that there. We can see right there that the sensor really is a true. It's a true 16:9 cinema shaped sensor. It's none of this regular traditional photography sensor. It is this camera is designed from the ground up purely for video. So even for those who look at this and think that it just looks like a big stills camera. This is a camera that's designed purely for video, and it looks like it is fantastic. I mean, I still have to say that if I was to get a cinema camera, I would have to seriously consider that one. I think that would be the one that I would seriously consider getting. And the downside on that would mean that it would mean that I have to switch systems, and that's something that I'm not really eager to do. All right, so now the next one. The next one that we have, this is one that I think right now is your favorite out of the bunch.
Yes.
This is your favorite out of the bunch, and this one is the Red Komodo.
Yes.
So
I love it. I'm excited.
The Red Komodo. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Let me get this one out of here. Let me see. Let me get this. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Now, I have to admit, I like the Red. I have always liked the Red cameras. I have liked Red as a company because I love what they have done. For a long time, Red cameras were a little pricey, and they're not like they're cheap now, but Red came out with a promise. They said that they wanted to democratize high-end filmmaking, and they wanted to make sure that everyone could afford to buy a high-end Hollywood quality cinema camera. And they said once they recouped their R&D money, they were dropping the prices on their camera, and they did. It seemed like it was in an instant. They came out with a blog post that was a couple years back, said we made our goal, we recouped our R&D money, and one of the first things they did immediately was drop the price on a couple of their cameras. And now, mind you, they're still expensive because back then you had to use and for their higher end cinema cameras, you still have to use the Red media, and those things are expensive. So you had to buy the Red memory cards. There were some adapters that you needed. I think they're all now either EF or PL mount though. But there was a number of things you had to use in the past to make the camera really work, and you would end up at $40,000-$50,000 for a full kit.
The monitor had to be Red.
Yeah. Now you can fully kit out, I think, this Komodo. What do you think you can get this Komodo kitted up for?
So when you say kitted, what do you mean? So I just want to be clear.
Everything. I mean, memory cards, monitors, batteries, everything that you're really going to need to get this thing up and running so that you can go do a full day shoot with it.
Oh, you can probably do it for $7,000, I think, maybe 7.5 at the most.
So right here, you think you're only going to need about another $1,000 because it's $6,000 for the body. So you think you're only going to need another $1,000
to get it up and run it to go do a day shoot, because you got maybe 2 CFast cards, and it depends on how you dump them. You need 2 batteries or 4 batteries, and you can get a monitor. So I'll say maybe 8 at the most, but
maybe 8. Okay.
You don't need a handle. You can get a monitor, and you don't necessarily need that, but it just makes it convenient. And you don't have to get an expensive monitor. You can get a $200, $300 monitor.
Okay.
And rock and roll SDI monitor and rock and roll, because it does everything internally. And so, you need a lens, and that's going to be the kicker. Getting the lens is going to be that extra money.
Right.
But that would be with any camera. So I don't look at that as, when we're talking about pricing it up, I looked at that as a separate, fee. I don't count that with really getting it running the same way, because that same amount of money that you would charge, like, to get what you get out of the Red, say the FX6, right?
Right.
I need another $1,200 monitor to get ProRes RAW out of the FX6.
Okay.
So now the FX6, to get it out, is another $7,000 without any other features, because you need external recording. The Red records internally, and Red RAW is leaps and bounds better than ProRes RAW.
Now, people say that the Red is not as user friendly as the FX6 or the C70. What are some of the things that you're going to miss out on if you go with the Red over one of the other cinema bodies? What are you gonna get? I mean, what are you gonna get? I mean, as far as I understand this seems like the main thing you're gonna get with the Red is image quality. You're gonna get top-notch image quality, but what are you gonna lose out on?
Well, so what you lose out on is the ND filters,
Okay,
right? And you lose out on the buttons that you have for customization. But Red has a counter to that, and I'll come back to that. And you'll possibly, trying to think, ND filters. And we talked about the audio issue because this has a 1/4-inch audio. And to
right,
me, that's not as big as a factor as it used to be. Because if I'm shooting a movie, most of the time, we're recording on separate audio,
right,
right? And then the other part is if I'm running and gunning, those Rode Video Mic Pros sound good.
right,
All the 1/4-inch stuff sounds dope. So the thing that you mostly lose are the ND filters and that real quick stuff for news. Like say if you're doing something quick turnaround,
right.
you can set your system up and create a workflow that makes it work. But nah, man, I don't think it's the same as it used to be when they talk about difficulty because the first issue with the Red was everything was proprietary.
Right.
They've eliminated that.
Okay.
Right. So they got rid of, you can buy CFast cards anywhere. You can use Canon batteries, which everybody has laying all over the place.
Right.
And you can use Canon glass or RF glass, which you can find anywhere, almost any shoot, no matter what camera. Oh, and you can put a PL mount on it.
Right.
So like it's versatile in that sense. But if you notice it also has its own internal wireless system so that you can stream to your phone or iPad and control the camera. So the features that you would normally have inside with buttons, you can have it on your phone. You can also turn your cell phone into a monitor.
That is dope.
You know, so for me, and then when you get back, and it's not just that, but Red Raw can fix mistakes.
Okay.
You can change the ISO, you can change the white balance.
Yeah.
All the things you got full control over that you don't have. Now, it's going to take a learning curve because you got to understand setting up your camera, like the compression rates for Red. Do I want an 8:1, 3:1, whatever, so that you can get the most out of your compression and have more time on your CFast card.
Now, who's the Red for versus, say, the Canon or the Sony? Who should get what type of camera?
In my opinion, if you're doing commercial work, narrative work, some doc work, the Red quality, if quality is most important, the Red blows them all out of the water.
Okay.
Right. But if you're doing a lot of running and gunning, then I would say the FX6 is just a better run and gun camera.
Okay. Now, who's the Canon for?
People who like Canon colors.
That's it.
Because when you look at all of these cameras, at the end of the day, you're going to get a great machine.
Right.
So the difference between the two are preference. And what do you value?
Right.
You know, and some people value the Canon colors over the Sony. Like the variable ND is it's like magic, man, to me.
Right.
My first time being able to go shoot outside and just roll the ND a half a stop or a quarter stop.
Yeah, that is nice.
Like,
that is nice.
And it's easy. And see, the other thing is like with the Red, with Sony log, you got to expose for the log. What happened to just exposing?
Right.
Now I got to overexpose, do this to get. I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
You know, and it's internal. I don't have to, because see, people talk about like your memory. So now if I'm recording in RAW, I got to buy SSD drives to record RAW on Sony. So now think about how your price shoots way up.
Yeah.
When you talk about recording RAW.
That is true. That is true. And the CFast cards are expensive, but like all memory, I think eventually as more and more people adopt that format, the prices will come down. and I think the prices will continue. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think those CFast cards for 128 gig card, I think it's around $300 or something like that.
Actually, you can get a 256 a little cheaper.
Can
Now,
you?
yeah, and I
Okay.
think the prices are starting to drop because more of these cameras are using a CFast card.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about a couple of other cameras up here that I've actually been looking at here, and let me pull up one of them that I've been sort of eyeballing,
Okay.
but I had some reservations about it. But I want to hear what your thoughts are on it. We have talked about it a bit, but here is one, and this is the Canon R5 mirrorless camera. And this is a camera that we briefly talked about, and I was really looking forward to this camera for a long time, because once they finally announced that it was coming out, I was really looking forward to it, because this camera does one thing in particular that no other camera out there is doing, and nothing else in its class is doing.
Overheating?
Tell me what the Tell me what that feature is besides being a very, very expensive hand warmer.
Yeah. Is it 8K?
It does. It shoots 8K. Yes. And it is a full frame 8K shooter. The 8K footage that comes out of this camera is absolutely stunning. It is incredible. But the camera overheats. It overheats and it shuts down, and that is what has killed it for me. That is what has killed it for me, because I was ready to buy this camera. I still look at it when I see the footage that comes out of it. I'm still like, I want to buy this camera. And the image stabilization on this camera is fantastic. It is probably class leading. I don't think there's anybody else out there that has better image stabilization. Maybe the GH5, but everybody else is. I mean, the GH5 is not a full frame camera, so it's in a different class. But the problem for me with this camera is reliability. I can't use a camera that's just not reliable.
I agree.
I just can't do it. I want to.
So I got a question for you.
Okay.
For $1,500 more, you can get the C70. Why not?
Well, here's the thing. Part of the reason why I wanted this camera is because this camera actually has a 45 megapixel sensor for stills. And so now we're back into that whole hybrid thing, that whole hybrid conversation where, do you buy a camera that does two things well, but doesn't do one thing great? Or do you buy individual cameras that both do their own one thing really, really great? Like, do you just buy a cinema camera that has everything that you need, and that is your dedicated camera just for video? Or do you buy, and then at the same time, you buy a stills camera that it does just still photography, that you use just for your still photography and does everything really, really great? Or do you try and find a hybrid that does them both well? I think this is probably as close as we've gotten to a camera that does everything really, really well. But it's still not there because of the reliability issues.
Yeah. And some people are like, anytime I spend $4,000, I don't want to do anything to make it work. I shouldn't have to make an adjustment to make it work. And I agree with you, Larry, but it's just what I learned is having one thing do what it's supposed to do makes life easier instead of trying, because I've left stuff for shoots because I had stuff in my camera bag that was supposed to be in my photo bag. Right. And for me, it was easier and simpler to have one thing that does everything.
Right. And yeah, so I mean, I've heard people say, well, if you shoot in this particular format, you don't have these issues, but if you shoot in the other format, you're going to get overheating. I don't want to have overheating issues at all. I've dealt with some other cameras in the past that have overheated, and it is very, very annoying that when you start shooting and you start to see that temperature light come on and you're like, you have to try and hurry up and get done what you're doing. Then if you mess up, you have to go back and do it again. And then if you get to the point, if you don't get it finished, whatever you're shooting, and it overheats, now you have to stop and wait for it to cool down. And sometimes if you're really in a groove, it just messes up your whole vibe. And
or if you got a crew, if you're on a movie set and it overheats and you got to wait for it, you just stop.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's a big issue. So, and the thing is with this camera, like for some people, I've heard some people say, well, it doesn't really overheat if you're shooting just in short clips, but if you're shooting some long, if you're shooting long clips, 20, 30 minutes, well, you can only go 30 minutes because at 29:59, it shuts off because it's still a record limit on there. Mm-hmm. But if you're recording long clips like that, that's when people say that's when you run into the heat issues. But I've heard other people say just leaving the camera on causes it to overheat, and that's a problem. The
fact that it overheats in any situation for $4,000 is a problem when I can buy one for $2,000 and not worry about it overheating. I mean, I'm being realistic.
No, right? You are right. It is an issue. And
I'm normally the one between us who makes excuses.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've been holding on to my Panasonic GH5, hoping that they come out with a GH6, because the GH5 and I don't want to sound like a fanboy, because I've had a GH2, a GH3, a GH4, and now a GH5. I stopped buying GH cameras at the 5 because I started shooting with Sony full frame cameras. So I didn't buy the GH5S. And one of the reasons why I didn't buy that camera is because it wasn't image stabilized. If that camera had the same image stabilization that the regular GH5 did, I probably would have bought that camera. And the other thing is that if Panasonic would have ever got their autofocus system together, I would have bought that. I would have never switched if they had the autofocusing system of Sony. I would have never switched. Period. I still would be shooting Micro Four Thirds. Huh?
S1H, because isn't that their full frame version of the GH5?
They have the S1H. Yes, the S1H might be it. That might be the finest mirrorless camera out there. I mean, the image quality on that thing is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal, and it's big and it's heavy, but it really produces a beautiful image. And for those of you out there that are serious about trying to get your work distributed, it's Netflix approved. And the reason why that's important is you may not have any intentions on getting your stuff on Netflix. You might, but what a lot of people do is they use the Netflix approved list of cameras as a guide to say you can do productions that we will air on our network, or you can do productions for us with a Netflix approved camera. And it used to be and it still is in large part, in Europe, where people look to the BBC for those standards. So if you find that you have a BBC approved camera, you're pretty much good to go anywhere. So, and the Panasonic SH1 is a Netflix approved camera. Now the S, what is it? The S5 what is it? The S5 one what is it? What's the new one?
The S1H.
No, the S1H is their top of the line one, right?
Uh-huh.
And then there's that other one. I think it's the what is that one? I think it's the S5 or something like that. Let me see. And that one's also supposed to be a really nice camera, and they did improve the autofocus some, but it's still not there. And I'm not sure why. Panasonic just does not go all in It's the S5. Yeah, it's the Panasonic S5.
Okay.
And
So
oh
they have
no,
the S.
is it the S? Wait, hold on a minute. Yeah, it's the Panasonic S5. It has a 24 megapixel sensor, 4K, 60 frames a second, 10-bit internal recording, Vlog, HDR, dual native ISO. It's a nice camera.
It has dual native ISO.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
It is a, let me pull it up here. Let me it is definitely a it is definitely a nice camera as far as specs wise. So and it's considerably cheaper. I mean, you're talking about $17.98 there for it. And we can see there you're getting a 24 megapixel sensor, 4K 60, 10-bit internal recording, Vlog, HDR, dual native ISO. It is a legit, straight up legit sensor. It's talking about 14 plus stops of dynamic range. I mean, it's pretty fantastic. Now, if you're a sports shooter, this might be a problem because you're only going to get 7 frames per second.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're a landscape photographer, this is really nice. The fact that you can get one of those, you can do that high res mode where they basically does like image stacking in camera, and it will give you a 96 megapixel high res image, which is really nice. So
take like 5 pictures in a row, right?
yeah. So oops, sorry about that. Yeah, I never looked at that camera seriously because the autofocusing issues with Panasonic just have, I can't do it. I mean, that was one of the primary reasons I left Panasonic and went to Sony, is because I wanted really good autofocus, and the full frame has made it difficult for me to go back. And to be honest with you, with full frame for me, the low light performance is somewhat of an issue, but it's not the biggest issue. One of the biggest issues for me with having a crop frame sensor is being able to get wide angle lenses. When you're shooting with a micro four thirds, all of your lenses are basically doubled. So, I mean, if you're shooting with a 10 millimeter lens, you're only really shooting with a 20. And so if you want a 10 millimeter, you have to get a 5 millimeter, which means you're going to get all kinds of crazy fisheye distortion and everything else. So that's the biggest problem for me.
Now, I got a question for you. Which one of the cameras that we talked about is one of the few or only ones not Netflix approved?
Not Netflix approved?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably, I mean, as far as the mirrorless cameras, I think that it's probably the Canon R5. I would think is probably not Netflix approved. I don't know about the C70. It's so new. I'm not sure if they've had even time to test that yet. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm going to say it's the R5 is not Netflix approved.
R5 or the FX6.
Neither one are Netflix approved. Wow.
The C70 and the red Komodo are Netflix approved.
Yeah, that must be because of maybe it's because the bit rate is too low or something.
Yeah, and the C70 sensor is the same as the C300.
Oh wow, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. Now I'm curious. So I guess my thought is that if the FS6 is not Netflix approved, then that means likely that the A7S III is probably not either.
Nope, I'm pretty sure. And I know that they would have it if the red is on the list and the C70 is on the list, then they've already checked out the FX6.
Now that takes us to our last camera here, which I want to show, and that one is actually the Sony A7S III here. And let's see if I have it on my list here. So this is the Sony A7S III right there. And I think I might have, let me see. I think I might have let me see if I have a a different. I think I have something from Sony's website, but let me see if I can pull that up here. But this is the one that I've been really sort of toying with, and this is the Sony A7S III, and it's very much like the camera that I'm currently shooting on, and except for the resolution's very low. I'm only going to get a 12 megapixel sensor for stills, but for video, this thing is a beast. I mean, if you just look at some of the specs right here, I mean, you're talking about 4K 120, 422 10-bit all eye internal,
That's
ISO 40 to 409,000. I mean, this thing is a little mini cinematographer's dream. It's a beast. This camera is a beast. And I don't think I've heard anybody say anything bad about it. It is just a fantastic camera as far as everything everybody has said. This is the one hang up for me, is the fact that it has a 12 megapixel sensor. And the reason why that's a problem for me is that means, for one, for still photography, for resolution, it's going to be a very low resolution. But the other problem with me is that I can't shoot in APS-C mode when I'm shooting video, which means all my APS-C lenses are pretty much dead to me, And I only have, I have a few of them now. I think, let's see, I have a 10 to 18, 18 to 105. I have the kit lens, which is like a 16 to 50 or something like that, which I don't really care about. So I guess it's my two lenses mainly. It's my 16 to, or my 18 to 105 is one that I really like using. And so I don't know, man. But I'm still thinking for video. I'm thinking to myself, I already have an A7R III that shoots 42 megapixels. So if I'm shooting stills, I have that. And I'm thinking that 12 megapixels.
You're starting to think like me now. Have two separate things: one for video, one for photography.
Well, here's the thing. When I think about this, I often think about, okay, if I go somewhere on vacation and I want to take a camera, can I take just one camera?
Yeah,
and Huh?
Your A7R, it'll do the job both ways.
Well, here's the problem with the A7R, is that I lose my flip out screen. And so if I'm out vlogging somewhere, I'm always guessing. And that guessing and that getting stuff wrong, because once you're holding your camera out here like this for a while, or you have it on a tripod or a selfie stick or something, and then you can start to get tired and your arm starts to droop. If you can't see yourself, the next thing you know, you're cutting your head off and you're messing your shots up. And sometimes you just can't go back and do stuff again. And so being able to actually see yourself, when you start to see yourself droop, you can put it back up. You hold it back up. And I mean, that is a big deal for people who vlog. It is a huge deal. And that alone is enough to make me seriously consider the A7S III. That it has that flip out screen. And to be perfectly honest with you, man, I shot for years on cameras that were only 12 megapixels and did just fine. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy having my 42 megapixel sensor. I really do. But if I thought about it, if I had to go and only take one camera with me, I would rather have a camera that has lower resolution and does everything that I want it to do, with the exception of not having higher resolution. And the other benefit of having that lower resolution is the low light performance is absolutely insane. So yeah, but here's the other thing. I've been finding myself vlogging more and more with small cameras like this. This is the DJI Pocket 2. It is a little handheld pocket gimbal with a camera on it. And I've been vlogging with this thing and it works really well.
How do you see yourself?
there is a small screen on here.
Oh wow.
So let's see if you can see that. There is a small screen on there.
Yeah.
And so all you do is you hold the camera like this, and there's a little button on there. You just click it 3 times, and it turns around. And now the camera is pointing at me, and I can see myself. So see if I can.
Yeah.
See if I can get that.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, and there, this thing has some nice features on here. One of them is it has this handle. They call this the do-it-all handle, and it comes off. And let's see if I can. It comes off, but this is a wireless receiver. So I put this on there, and now I have this right here. I have this, which is a little wireless microphone.
Oh, get out of here.
So, I mean, this thing is sort of perfect as far as vlogging is concerned. But as far as low light performance, it's the same problem you run into if you're shooting with like a GoPro or something. It just has a small sensor and it doesn't look that great at night. And that's one of the reasons why I would like to get back to vlogging with a full-size camera, with the mirrorless camera. That's one thing I definitely miss. And so that A7S III, I know I can vlog with that thing, and when it's pitch black, and I'm still going to get a good image. If there's any light, I'm going to do well with that camera.
Yeah, that thing is a beast.
And the only downside is I have to worry about 12 megapixel stills. But still, the last time I went on vacation, my wife and I went to Paris, and I can tell you I shot the vast majority of my images with my Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus when I had my Note 10.
No,
I shot the vast majority of my photos on my Note 10 Plus.
I think my iPhone, my 12 Pro smoked that.
Yeah, well, the 12 Pro is nice. The 12 Pro is nice. I'll tell you what. I seriously considered buying the 12 Pro or the 12 Pro Max. Here's the reason why I didn't get a new iPhone this year. Because I wanted a smaller phone this year, and Samsung, when they came out, because I have the Note 20, and this thing is a phenomenal phone and has an incredible camera on it as well. But in order to get the better camera, you had to buy the Note 20, the Note 20 Ultra. The regular Note 20 was sort of a scaled down, crappy version of it, and then Apple did something similar this year. Normally, Apple makes their Pro line the exact same. They just have one phone bigger than the other. And this year they changed it up, where the 12 Pro now has a slower aperture lens on there. It doesn't have the built-in image stabilization. And I think there was one other feature it didn't have. And I was like,
one is like mechanical, where it moves around. The other one has image stabilization, but it's different on how it does it.
Right. Well, sorry, I meant to say that the Pro Max has sensor shift image stabilization. Yeah. And so, but and really, when I thought about it, I thought to myself, the iPhone, all the phones with Apple, they all do the same thing. You're really the major differences that you're paying for when you switch phones and go up from like the mini upwards. One of the things you're paying for a little bit more RAM, and you're paying for screen size and the cameras. I already have the screen size. I have an iPhone 11 Pro Max. I have the screen size. And so all I would really be paying for is a better camera. And I had to ask myself, is the camera on the new iPhone 12 Pro Max worth $1,400? And ultimately I said, no, it's not. That's what I came up with. Because I really thought to myself, if I'm going to put out that kind of money, I might as well buy a A7C, which is only $1,700. I might as well spend $300 more and get a full frame, mirrorless camera.
I agree. That A7C ain't bad though.
It's not. And I thought about getting it. I thought about selling my my A6400 and getting the A7C, you know?
Yeah.
But the reason why I didn't is because they didn't improve the image stabilization. It's the same crappy image stabilization that the old cameras have. The only Sony camera that has good image stabilization is the A7S III. That's it.
And the FX6.
Yeah, but that's a cinema camera.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
not really trying to go that route.
it's a fat A7 III.
Yeah, how am I gonna look holding out a FS6 in front of me like this, trying to vlog with it?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the guy Marcus Brownlee or
Uh-huh.
Marcus whatever, he was vlogging with a Red.
Yeah, I've
No,
seen him do some crazy stuff.
no, but the Red Komodo is only 4x4, Larry.
Yeah, but that's 4x4. That's just the body alone. You still have to put a lens on it, and then you still have to put a monitor on it.
A
You can't
50
vlog with
pancake,
that thing.
a 50 pancake lens, and you get the Shinobi. You're in the wind, or you get a small HD, which are thinner.
But here's the thing, right? You get a A7S III and slap on the 16 to 35 f4, and it has that flip out. You have that flip out screen. That's all you need to vlog with right there. And if you're out and about somewhere, no one's gonna come stop you and say, "Hey, you're a professional shooter. You need permits, or you can't film here." They're gonna look at you just like you're some random Joe, with a random Joe camera guy with a camera on your arm or something. They're not gonna look at you like anything.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
So.
But still, that Red, that thing.
So
Yeah.
which one? So have you made your mind up? Have you decided which
Yeah.
one you're gonna get?
Yes. I'm going to get the Red.
So you are gonna get the Komodo.
Yes. Because my idea is not to be a running gun shooter. I don't want to be a wedding shooter. I don't really want to be an event videographer. If I do some documentary stuff, most of the time I want to do talking head stuff, really, for the docs and maybe get some B-roll. But I'm not sitting here wanting to do a lot of running and gunning. And right now, because my FS5 is so, what you gonna say? Like, I can't really sell it back for it's only you can sell it back for like $1,000. I may keep it and get a converter, and then
Right.
that way I can use those RF4 EF lenses on my FS5 and do all the other stuff with that.
Right.
So that's the possibilities. Because I wanted to go sell my FS5 back, and he said $1,000.
Mm,
So I was like,
that's
I mean,
painful.
I can keep it. Yeah. So I can keep it and use it to make other money and just put a couple lenses on it with a converter.
Right. So now here's the issue with the Red Komodo. Since I know you shoot sports as well. Are you then going to switch over and buy a Canon steel body, or are you going to end up keeping all of your Sony stuff so that you can have your lenses with your A7S, your A7 III? Are you going to keep that, or are you going to go ahead, because you'll have to have RF lenses? Are you going to go ahead and switch and buy like a R6 or R5 and go and use one of those for a still camera?
I wasn't going to get the R5. If I got the R5, it would strictly be for stills anyway, because of the high resolution. And I learned from you about cropping in and getting a few things. And it's either the R6 or the R5 is that possibility to switch. And I plan on that just to keep things simple. And like even shooting the photography, I'm gonna just get a 2x extender, 70 to 200,
Right.
and go to work with one lens and the extender, because that's going to change. And the difference too, I wanted to come back to that. The reason why low light isn't as bad is because now I'm shooting college games
Mm-hmm.
and they're on TV. So the
Right. So it's all
stadiums
their
are
stadiums are lit.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about low light as much.
Right.
And even with the A7 III, man, shooting in low light, I put it on auto ISO
Yeah.
and I'm running and gunning. And even if it's 6,400, it still looks good.
So what are you saying? So are you saying that you're gonna buy a Canon Steels camera, or are you gonna keep your Sony?
I think I'm gonna get a Canon Stills
Yeah.
camera.
So you think you're gonna get what, the R6?
Yep, unless they do something about that A7 IV coming out. I'm really debating.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's sort of what I was hanging in there for, to see if they were going to come out with the A7 IV and what they were going to do with it. Because if they come out with the A7 IV and give it some really great video features and increase the resolution, if they increased it to like 42, maybe even 36 or something, I would consider switching to that if they gave it better image stabilization and the flip out screen. I'm willing to go down in resolution a little bit for those features. I'm not going down to 24 though. If I'm going to go to 24, I'm just going to go all the way down to 12 and get a great video camera.
Well, see, I love the A7 III, and it was fine, but for video, it started to be just cumbersome plugging everything on. And then when I was trying to record in RAW, you had to get this and to get that, and it turned into a cluster. So that's why I said the Red is still like the A7 III with a few more features. The only thing that keeps it like a DSLR is the audio feature. That's
right.
DSLR mirrorless-ish.
Right. Well, we'll see, man. We will see. I don't think that Canon's ever going to come out with something like a mirrorless camera that's going to be like the A7S III, because they're always trying to protect their cinema line. Mm-hmm. But I think if Panasonic ever gets their autofocusing system together, they're going to be a serious contender for everyone in the marketplace. But I think Sony just needs to give us Canon level image stabilization, and I think they'll dominate for years to come. And I think they can already do it. I think all they really have to do is just give us some electronic stabilization in body, because they already have. I mean, for all the lenses except, well, even with the A7S III, they can still do it too. They just have to be a little bit of a crop. They'd give us 10-15% crop with the electronic image stabilization, and we're good to go. So,
well, that's what the Komodo does. It doesn't have the same kind of image stabilization, but they always do for when they do high speed stuff, every time they crop in, so that they maintain the maximum amount of pixels.
Right. So. All right, Joe. Well, we're going to get out of here. And so it looks like Cove is going with the red Komodo. So it looks like that is going to be the one that he's rolling with. Let's take a quick look at it here again before we get out of here. It looks like he is going with the red Komodo. Big baller style right there. Hollywood movie money making movie machine there. So 6K. And this thing is a serious beast. When someone says I'm shooting with a red, people pay attention, and that just can't be underestimated. When you want to get someone's attention and they say, "What are you shooting with?" and you say, "I'm shooting with a red," people stand up and listen. So they pay attention. Me, on the other hand, because I work from home in my studio 99% of the time and don't see other human beings. I think I'm almost certain that I'm going to get this one right here. I think I'm going to go ahead and get this one right here. I think I'm going to get the A7S III.
You can't lose.
No. I really want that. I really like that Canon. I like the idea of it. I like the image stabilization, but I do not like the reliability issues. I don't want a camera that overheats. I want a camera that works reliably. And when I look at these specs, 4K 120, 422 10-bit internal all-I, I mean, that 422 10-bit all-I is going to give me like 400 megabits a second. That's a lot of data coming through there.
Not like the red.
Yeah. Well, I want something that I can shoot stills with too. So
I'm only busting your chops because we argue about this every day.
Because, you know, if I go on vacation or something, or if I have to go on a trip and go shoot like a little, if I'm doing like a little indie doc or something, I can pack this up. I don't need to take another camera with me. I can just take this and that's it. All I need is this. I can get that little audio adapter that goes on top so I can get my XLRs. The only thing that I wish I could get that that is not on there is that little Indy adapter that Canon has that they don't have for Sony. I wish Sony had that. But
hold on. Somebody mentioned MKBHD. Is that the dude Marcus Brownlee?
Yeah.
I think he knows a lot about cameras, but he's not a cinematographer. It's kind of weird, like watching him review cameras, because it comes from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think when you look at, I mean, it really is. Everybody has their own way of shooting. They have their own experiences with cameras, and so that definitely peppers how they think of cameras and what's important to them. And like if you watch someone like Philip Bloom, he has done a lot of documentary work, and so the things that are important to him, I think, are different than someone who shoots Hollywood movies, you know, because people who are shooting Hollywood movies, they're all about finding things, you know, making the camera look organic and smooth. They want stuff that's reminiscent of film. And people who shoot documentaries aren't necessarily all about that, you know. Oftentimes they want stuff that looks super clean, stuff that is, you know, that's easy to use and fast to use. They want they want to have all kinds of frame rates available to them. They want everything in one package, because if you're traveling off to the farthest reaches of the Amazon jungle, you have weight is one of your greatest concerns, because you have to pack in everything. So you don't want to have a giant cinema camera. You want a small camera with small batteries, because you have to take in every camera. If you're shooting for a whole day, you need batteries. In fact, you probably need enough batteries for 2 days, because you need to make sure that if you can't charge up at night, that you can still shoot the next day. So, you know, all that weight is a concern. So I think I'm going to get the A7S III. I think for me, that is probably, there are some compromises there. I'm not going to get 8K. I'm not getting that. I'm not going to get raw in camera like you will if you're shooting, you know, with the Komodo. But for what I need, I think I'm going to get the best image quality and the most, you know, I'm going to get the most flexibility as far as frame rates and low light performance. I'm going to get all of that with this camera. And because the last time they put out a A7S III or A7S camera, it was like 5 years ago. Now, I don't think they're going to get away with that this time, because I think that there's so many other people in the market space now in that same space. I think they'll probably only be able to have this camera out for 2 years before they have to update it. But
I'm not so sure though. I don't think they can wait 5 years, but like, I don't see Canon, unless they're going to make a version 2 of all the other cameras, because I think they got rid of the C100. Right? I think this C70 is like their C100, mirrorless C100. And so what I see is that some of these cameras are going to sit here and they're just going to make they may come out with an A7S IV, but I don't know if they have to. You know, now, the FS5 is how old?
It's old.
About 6 years. Yeah. And they're just coming with an FX6.
Right. Now think about this though. Think about this. Imagine Canon comes out with a firmware update or a new camera that completely solves the overheating issue. Done. You're talking about 8K with no overheating. Tell me why, if you were looking at between buying a Canon, the only reason why you would want to go to a Sony at that point is if you needed to shoot with no record limits and
raw.
And if you wanted RAW. And I haven't heard people say the best things about Sony RAW because it doesn't work in the same way Red RAW works.
No. And the difference too, works in every system. Sony doesn't work in DaVinci. ProRes RAW doesn't work in DaVinci. So and everybody nowadays wants to color in DaVinci.
Right.
So that's it. And it doesn't have the flexibility as Red RAW. Like you can't change the ISO. Red RAW, you can change the ISO and the color balance.
Right.
You can physically go in and change the color balance. It's not like you go into ProRes RAW and just slide your color balance features over. It's a completely different workflow.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, I think the A7S III is going to be the best combination for me because, one of the things that I like to do when I'm out and about on vacation is take my camera with me and shoot. And I love to shoot at night. And I like to do some street photography when I'm out and about. And when you can shoot at night with very, very clean images, because you can shoot at 25,000 ISO and have it look like you're shooting at ISO 400. I mean, that's just incredible. That really is incredible. And that's what you get with that dual ISO, because it's like you get clean, you get clean noise all the way up until I think what is it, like 5,000 ISO or something on the Sony, and then it starts to get a little messy around 8,000, and then you bump up to that second to the second native one at 12,000, and then it gets super clean again. Yeah.
So that's an amazing camera, bro.
Yeah.
I really don't think you can lose. That's why I said it's tomato.
Yeah.
And how does it fit what you do?
Yeah, I think the biggest, and the Canon, if they didn't have those reliability issues, I would have jumped on that in a heartbeat. But
when this is over, we can shoot test footage together.
There we go. Let's do that. I like that. When we can actually get together without killing each other,
I know that's right. Stay masked up.
Yeah. I'm gonna get that vaccine. So, all right, y'all. It's been a while. We've been on for almost an hour and a half here. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Looks like Kobe's going with the Komodo. I think I am going to go ahead and get that Sony A7S III. I think I've talked myself into it. And yeah, I think I probably have talked myself out of the Canon, which has left me talked into the Sony. And you're shaking. Yeah, you're talking about getting that. You're talking about getting that Komodo. You would want me to get that Canon R5, because that means there's more lenses in the click. So
hopefully they make an adapter.
And I don't buy cheap glass. I do not buy. I tell you right now, I do not believe in cheap glass.
No, me either. I have 3 Zeiss lenses. And I'm breaking my heart that I'm gonna have to get rid of them unless Larry wants to buy them for half price.
Nah, man. I think if I get this A7S III, depending on how I like using my 16-35, because I have the 16-35 f4, which I think is really nice for vlogging. But I've seen people vlogging with that 12-24 2.8. And it looks nice. Oh, it looks nice. But that lens is $3,000. And I'm not sure I want to put out that money for a 12-24. They have a 12-24 f4, which is like $1,200.
Well, you can try out my 85, my baddest 85, man. With some portraits.
Maybe that's an f2, right?
Yep, f2.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad lens. It's a beautiful lens. I've seen the lens. I've seen people shoot with it. I guess if I start doing more portrait work, then I would say yeah, but I don't really have a need for 85 right now. So I'll be honest with you, the lenses that I shoot the most with right now, I shoot with my 24-1.4 all day, every day. That lens pretty much lives on my A7 III for shooting here in the studio. That's what I shoot with. That's what I'm shooting with right now. That's what I shoot with almost all the time. Now, when I'm shooting, like if I go to the zoo or something, I bring my 100 to 400 Sony.
I'm waiting.
That's a 100. I think that's a 5.6. I think it's a 5.6.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
I'm waiting to get my hands on that. But look, you see how long we start talking when we start getting on camera.
I know. Anyways, let's get out of here, man. Let's wrap this up. So,
I got the Komodo, and you got
I got the A7S III.
All right.
Hopefully, I can get it. It's out of stock everywhere. I did check on B&H's website. It says that there might be some availability. There's some availability of them on the 17th. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get my hands on one on the 17th, which is the day after tomorrow, I believe. So that's on a Thursday. So we'll see.
All right. Well, look, you be easy, man.
All right. Thank you guys. Everybody showed up. Thank you for hanging out, listening to our discussion on camera stuff. We'll probably I think me and Kobe are gonna hang out again. We're gonna probably talk about some more stuff. We both love talking about electronics and gadgets, and he does a lot of home automation stuff. I don't automate anything in here. So all my stuff is old school manual, but there's a lot of stuff that when I've gone to his house, he walks in and it's like being in the Jetsons. You walk in and just start talking and telling the house what to do, and the house just starts doing it. You tell the house to start grilling you a steak, and all of a sudden you come back 15 minutes later and you have a nice pan-seared steak, and I don't know how Siri or Alexa does it, or Google, but it gets done. So, but we're going to talk about some stuff. Yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff because there's always new gadgets coming out. And the new year, when the new year comes in, CES comes around, there's all kinds of cool stuff that's out there. There's going to be new phones. There's going to be new cameras. There's going to be new headphones. We're going to talk about all that stuff. Sony has some stuff coming up for their CES booth that's going to be coming out soon.
Look, I'm about to get in trouble by my wife, but I do.
She's trying to tell you to go.
Yeah, yo, did you see the new Apple headphones that are almost $500?
$549.
And they look like two Apple Watches on your ears. Did you see that? They even got the little dot right there.
They do. But people have said, a lot of people were not expecting very much, but they've said that they sound really good. And here's the crazy thing. It's sort of been like a general consensus among all of the YouTubers and vloggers that do headphones that the Sony, the Sony WH100s or so, I forgot whichever ones they are, the Sony cans, those ones are supposedly the best wireless Bluetooth active noise canceling headphones on the market. And what I've been hearing really consistently is that the AirPods Max don't sound that much better. I mean, now here's the thing. The Air Max Pro, the Sony AirPods Max, I think are like an extra $150, $200. But what I keep hearing people say is they don't sound that much better, which means they sound better, which means these things are no joke. If those were the best ones on the market and the Apple ones are better, well, they may not sound that much better, but they are better. But the problem is you are paying that Apple tax. And I don't know if I'm willing to pay $549 for a pair of headphones.
Yeah. And it's the ecosystem, man. Like, you're paying for the ecosystem. And it is definitely an Apple tax. We'll talk about that later, man. I got to get out of here.
All right. But I will say this. This is one thing I will say about those headphones that would make me buy them is if I can edit with them. And the reason for that is that when I try and edit with wireless headphones, there's always just a slightest of delay. And sometimes like I can watch a regular video through QuickTime or on Netflix or streaming on YouTube, no delay. But when I'm editing, there's always that little bit of delay. And that's a problem, especially if you're syncing audio or if you're fine tuning and you're trying to line stuff up based on the audio. It can make it really difficult. And so if you can actually get good, clean, no delay, super low latency audio coming through on the AirPods, Max, that would make me consider them, because it's really nice to be able just to grab something, put them on, and start using them instead of having to plug something in and be tethered to it. Because I tell you how many times I've grabbed my laptop to go set it on the coffee table and then yanked my head forward because I'm plugged in. So
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
On that.
Anyways, man. All right, we are out of here. Thank you guys all for showing up. Appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jacobi, for showing up and talking camera crap with me. I don't have a lot of people I can talk about camera stuff and geek out with, so I enjoy it when we do. And I'm looking forward to both of us getting these new cameras in our hands so that we can show off some footage and see what they can do, and hopefully get together and shoot some test footage together. So yeah.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Can't wait. All right, y'all. It's been real. Thank you so much for coming through, for showing up and showing out. And I am Larry. That is Jacobi. Thanks again. And until next time, I'm Larry with Today I Feel Like. Love, peace, and hair grease. Peace.